The most important poet in modern history to me is Ezra Pound, because Ezra Pound, throughout his very long career, in spite of controversies, he made just as much of an effort to make beautiful poetry as he did to help people understand poetry and how to appreciate it. And Ezra Pound's poetry, at first glance, can come across as very inaccessible. But the problem is, Ezra Pound is one of the most polarizing poets as well. There are either people that spend their whole lives and they never understand, you know, what's so wonderful about him. And there have been other people who have basically spent their entire recreational lives reading the Cantos books of his. So it's actually, if you were to ask me how to appreciate Ezra Pound and where to start, my answer, I think, is pretty astonishingly simple, and that's to listen to audio of him performing his poems. So many poets, not just Ezra Pound, have noticed and concluded that poetry is a performance art. It's not literature. Poetry is energy. Poetry is not literature. Verse is literature. Prose is literature. Haiku is literature. Novel is literature. Poetry is not. Poetry is an umbrella art. It encompasses so many other domains. And the best resource to check that out of Ezra Pound performing his poems is on the University of Pennsylvania website. The University of Pennsylvania has a public archive of audio of him performing his stuff, and that's what finally got me to appreciate where Ezra Pound was coming from with his poetry. There's even an audio of him talking to Eva Hies, but I don't understand it because I believe it's in German, because Eva Hies was German. I don't understand German, so I don't understand what they're talking about, but that is on the archive as well. So on that emphasis that poetry is a performance art more than a literary form of art, it kind of implies, and I believe this, that if you want to get into poets that I deeply admire or poets that a friend of yours deeply admires, it's actually probably more suggestible, a higher success rate if you watch or listen to recordings of them performing it rather than even reading their books. I think people listening to the audio of Ezra Pound performing it will get you a lot quicker progress in a much shorter period of time than even reading his books. So now on that front, with my amount of time that I've listened to Ezra Pound, I will give you my number one tip on how to perform poetry like him if you are a poet starting out and you're not too confident in how to perform yet. I will show you how. So, I'm almost hesitant sharing this because it feels a little subjective, because at the end of the day, what I'm going to share is my interpretation of what Ezra Pound sounds like first. And I think that's subjective. I don't think that's really an empirical thing. But it's helped me a lot, and maybe it'll help others. So every time I listen to Ezra Pound, I get the exact same energy emitting from the audio. I get that the silence is actually blackness. It's, as it says in the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament, tobu habohu, formless and void, dark, deep. There's nothing there. And when Ezra Pound starts performing, a candle lights. It just synesthetically, it sounds just like a candle, both defining and defying the darkness. And I always keep that image in my mind when I'm performing poetry. And I strongly suggest that, again, take this with a grain of salt, because this is largely my interpretation and not empirical, peer-reviewed fact. But if you want to perform like Ezra Pound or get a much more emotive but not so dramatic and chaotic energy off of when you perform poetry, just think of the silence when you're not reading, when you're not performing, when you're not orating. Think of that as just a very dark room and there's no source of light in it. And when you perform, it's time to light the candle. You are that candle that's defining and defying the darkness. And it's just you. You're just one person. It's just one very tiny candle. So that's, I could have some form of synesthesia, but that's exactly what imagistically it looks like to me when I hear Ezra Pound's poems read aloud. And I've tried it and it's helped me, and maybe it'll help you now that I'm sharing all that I've learned. So hope this video finds you well, safe, healthy, unjudged, and God be with you.